Liora Hemsley vanished without a trace after stepping into a white Rolls-Royce in Dubai, while Omar Zarani erased his digital footprint the same night, and Nils Varga, her manipulative ex, received a secret payment the very next day. What? Seemed like a glamorous trip turned into a global mystery, and every clue pulled investigators deeper into a world of power, silence, and disappearance. Liora Hemsley had always lived life in the spotlight. With over 2.3 million followers on Instagram and a booming OnlyFans account, she had built a digital empire on glamour, confidence, and an unapologetic lifestyle. Every post she uploaded felt like a cinematic moment: luxury cars, exotic vacations, designer clothes, and champagne-fueled nights. To her fans, she represented freedom and success. But behind the flawless filters and perfect captions, something more complicated had begun to take shape. 2 weeks before her trip to Dubai, Liora suddenly announced a rebranding. She deleted half her content, left her management agency without explanation, and changed her bio to a single black heart emoji. Close friends noticed she was unusually quiet in their group chats and had canceled 2 modeling gigs last minute. One friend recalled how Liora had mentioned a private offer that would set her up for life, though she offered no details. Then, without warning, Liora posted a boomerang of herself boarding a first-class Emirates flight with the caption, "The best kind of risk." It caught everyone off guard. No one knew she was leaving, and she didn't respond to messages. The next few days were filled with curated glimpses into her stay, videos of her at rooftop pools, dinner at Burj Khalifa, and slow-motion walks across marble hotel lobbies. Her posts felt like scenes from a movie, but they also felt oddly staged. None of the usual tags: no friends, no mention of location names, and not a single person visible in her photos. What stood out most was her second-to-last post, a short video of a yacht drifting in the Persian Gulf, with a haunting caption that read, "Sometimes paradise feels like a trap in disguise." It was unlike anything she had posted before. There was no music, no filter, just raw footage of water and sky. Hours later, she posted one final image, a selfie wearing a black bikini, standing near the edge of the yacht. Her eyes were hidden. Behind sunglasses, her expression unreadable. That photo would be the last anyone would ever see of her. Her absence was first noticed by fans who flooded her comment section with concern. Days passed with no updates. Her subscriber feed on OnlyFans went quiet. Influencer gossip pages speculated she was taking a digital detox or working on a secret brand deal. But her family knew better. Liora had always kept in contact with her younger sister, and now all calls went straight to voicemail. WhatsApp showed her last seen time as 3 days earlier. Her location sharing had stopped. Something was wrong. Liora's mother contacted the British Embassy in the UAE, which triggered a request to Dubai authorities to confirm her whereabouts. There was no official record of her checking into any hotel. Her immigration entry was confirmed, but there was no log of her ever leaving the country. Meanwhile, her bank accounts showed no transactions since the day she arrived. Her social media accounts had been untouched since the yacht post. Digital forensics confirmed her phone had stopped sending data entirely. Online, concern turned into theories. Some believed she had been abducted by a fan. Others suggested she was involved in illegal escorting rings. Anonymous accounts even claimed they saw her at private parties with men known to groom influencers under the guise of luxury vacations. Her disappearance became the subject of podcasts, TikToks, and Reddit threads. But amidst the noise, the truth remained buried. The timing of it all was suspicious. Her rebranding, her sudden departure, the cryptic captions, and the decision to cut off from her agency. It all pointed to something calculated. Someone had offered her something off. The books, an exclusive arrangement, a secret contract, maybe even a deal that guaranteed wealth in exchange for something darker. Whatever it was, Liora had gone silent in a city known for its glittering skyline and well-guarded secrets. And the deeper people looked into her final days, the more disturbing the puzzle became. Amina Rashed sat in her downtown studio, checking her messages over and over. The last time she heard from Liora Hemsley was 2 days ago, when they confirmed their plan for a shoot at the Dubai frame. Amina had worked with influencers before, but Liora was different, sharp, cautious, and professional. It was unlike her to go completely silent. At first, Amina assumed Liora had gotten caught up in last-minute events, or had decided to cancel without informing her. But when she checked Liora's Instagram, she saw the same final post from the yacht, untouched for 3 days. Something didn't feel right. She tried calling. No answer. She tried texting. The messages went undelivered. Concern grew into alarm when she visited the hotel. Liora had mentioned during their first meeting a luxury property near downtown Dubai. At the reception desk, Amina asked for her, but the staff couldn't find any booking under the name Liora Hemsley or any of the aliases Amina knew she used for online work. Suspicion escalated when a front desk manager casually mentioned that a few influencers rented apartments through private agencies and sometimes avoided using their real names for discretion. But even that didn't explain why no one had seen her in days. Amina filed a missing person report. While Dubai is known for its efficiency and order, cases involving foreigners, especially those involved in adult content, are treated delicately. Detective Faisal Kadri, a seasoned officer with a background in cyber investigations, was assigned to the case. He had handled high-profile disappearances before, but something about this one felt different. From the moment he reviewed Liora's social media timeline, he knew this wasn't an accidental disappearance or a random act. This was controlled, planned. His first move was digital tracing. With help from the Cybercrime Division, they pulled metadata from Liora's last online activities. The final ping from her phone placed her somewhere on the outskirts of Dubai, near a sparsely populated desert district known for luxury private villas. The area was far from hotels and tourist spots, quiet, exclusive, and heavily guarded. Security footage across public roads leading in and out of the area was collected. One particular video caught Liora stepping into a white Rolls-Royce Phantom parked outside a gated mansion in Al Barsha. The driver's face was obscured, and the car's plates turned out to be temporary rentals registered under a fake identity. The lead was shaky, but it was all they had. Detective Faisal obtained satellite access to traffic movement in the villa's vicinity during that time window. It showed the car exiting toward the desert area, but never returning. Back at the police department, officers reviewed her passport entry records. Liora had entered the UAE 6 days earlier, but no exit stamp was found. Immigration confirmed she hadn't left. She was still in the country somewhere. Her bank activity was checked next. No transactions had been made since the evening of her yacht post. Her accounts showed no suspicious withdrawals, but her Apple Pay had been disabled from her device shortly after her last post. Meanwhile, Amina received a strange message from an unknown number on Telegram. She knew too much. Stay silent. She shared the screenshot with Detective Faisal, who traced it to a burner phone activated with a fake Emirati ID. The message proved one thing: someone was watching. Digging further, Faisal found something chilling. Liora's phone had attempted to connect to a Wi-Fi network registered to a private residence owned by a holding company with no online presence. When that company was investigated, it turned out to be a shell corporation tied to others located in Cyprus, the Seychelles, and Switzerland. Several of these shell companies were previously linked to cases involving illicit modeling contracts and influencer trafficking. The villa associated with the Wi-Fi network had been leased to a man named Omar Zarani, a wealthy but secretive businessman known to host elaborate parties for VIP guests. He had never been accused of a crime, but he had never stayed long enough in one place to be questioned either. A list of his known associates included figures from the modeling, tech, and crypto worlds. Many had been involved in private events. That excluded media and enforced strict non-disclosure agreements. Everything was pointing to a well-oiled machine that knew how to disappear people. And Liora, with all her followers, her beauty, and her rising fame, had unknowingly stepped straight into it. The name Omar Zarani didn't appear on any social media platforms, yet his influence quietly touched every corner of Dubai's underground elite. Wealthy, connected, and nearly invisible in the digital world, he was the kind of man who operated in whispers and shadows. Known to industry insiders, Omar had a reputation for hosting lavish, untraceable events that attracted influencers, models, and high-ranking international figures. His guests were always made to sign non-disclosure agreements. No photos, no locations tagged, no digital footprints. Detective Faisal Kadri pulled every legal string he could to dig into Omar's operations. The holding company that owned the Desert Villa was linked to 6 more luxury properties across Dubai. All had been leased using a chain of offshore corporations. While each step looked legitimate on paper, the trail led nowhere. No direct link to Omar existed. But testimony from a previous witness in an unrelated investigation revealed a disturbing pattern. Young women, often influencers or aspiring models, were flown into Dubai under the promise of high-end brand deals. Some were never seen again. Those who returned often refused to talk, fearing legal trouble or retaliation. With growing urgency, Faisal tracked down a former associate of Omar's, a man who once worked logistics for one of the private parties. Though the man refused to testify officially, he agreed to meet off record. He confirmed that Omar frequently invited women from abroad, housed them temporarily in his villas, and promised modeling contracts. He also mentioned that any woman who asked too many questions or tried to leave early was handled. When asked what handled meant, the man simply said, "They stopped being seen." Meanwhile, new surveillance footage came to light from a parking garage near the Dubai Marina. It showed a blurred figure matching Liora's description stepping out of a white Rolls-Royce and being escorted into a different vehicle, this one with tinted windows and a diplomatic plate. The footage time-stamped the night she disappeared. The diplomatic plate, however, was traced to a private security firm contracted under Omar's name, not to an embassy. It was a manipulation meant to avoid law enforcement. Faisal's investigation was now being watched. Internal resistance began surfacing. Calls from unknown officials warned him to back off. Access to certain property records was suddenly blocked. Even colleagues advised him to let the case go. But Faisal had seen enough in his career to know when power was being used to bury something ugly. Just as the pressure mounted, a new lead emerged. An encrypted cloud backup from Liora's old iPhone account was accessed using the device registered to a location near Omar's compound. The data retrieved included a screenshot of a message she had sent a day before her last post. It was unsent, saved in her notes. It read, "If something happens to me, tell them to look at the man behind the parties. He's not who he says he is." That was enough to widen the investigation scope. Then came the twist no one expected. Interpol flagged an international wire transfer from a Swiss account to a name familiar to Faisal, Nils Varga, Liora's ex-boyfriend. Nils, a shadowy figure from her past, had a reputation for manipulation. Their relationship had ended messily a year ago, with Liora accusing him of emotional abuse and cyberstalking. After their breakup, Nils vanished from the public eye. Now, the transfer had occurred one day after Liora's disappearance. Further analysis revealed that Nils had entered the UAE under a different name 3 days before Liora went missing. He had stayed at a business hotel near Dubai Creek and used a false identity tied to a Hungarian passport. CCTV from his hotel showed him leaving late at night and returning Early in the morning on multiple occasions during that week. Suddenly, a pattern formed. While Omar had the infrastructure and resources to make someone disappear, Nils had the motive. What connected them remained unclear. But it was now certain that Liora hadn't just walked into danger. She had been targeted possibly by more than one person. A plan had been set in motion long before her flight to Dubai, and every day that passed without answers made her fate less certain and more terrifying. The villa on the edge of the desert stood like a fortress. Isolated and opulent, it was wrapped in high walls, security gates, and silence. By the time investigators arrived, the property had already been abandoned. No sign of Omar Zerani. No guests, just a hollow luxury shell that had been scrubbed clean, but even the most careful criminals leave behind traces. What the investigators found inside wasn't what they expected. It was worse. The interior was a cold contrast to the lavish image portrayed from the outside. There were no personal items, no photographs, no real signs of daily life. Every room was sterile and minimal. Yet down a long marble corridor, hidden behind a false wall in the wine cellar, officers discovered a concealed entrance to a soundproof underground room. It was a space designed with precision and intent. Inside, there were studio lights, high-resolution cameras, a tripod bolted to the floor, and a biometric fingerprint scanner mounted beside the door. A forensic sweep uncovered a small amount of dried blood near a floor drain and fibers from a black bikini. DNA confirmed the blood belonged to Liora Hemsley. The fibers matched the outfit from her final Instagram photo. There were also partial fingerprints on the biometric pad, too smudged for a match, but enough to prove someone had been locked in. On the far wall, a mirror had been shattered. Embedded in one of its cracks was a single long strand of blonde hair. Video footage recovered from a hidden drive was encrypted, but fragments were salvaged. One clip showed Liora entering the room, visibly confused and disoriented. The footage was dim, likely recorded on night vision, but her body language made it clear she had not come willingly. In another short segment, two men, faces covered, appeared to drag her out of frame. The last clip ended with a sudden blackout and static. The case now crossed into something darker than a disappearance. It was a possible abduction and assault. The villa, it turned out, had been rented under a false company name just days before Liora's arrival. No rental agent claimed to have met the tenant in person. The payment was made in cryptocurrency. For weeks, authorities tried tracking Omar through financial records, but every trace vanished into encrypted wallets and offshore loopholes. The moment Liora's name made headlines, Omar had erased himself. His other villas were found similarly stripped. His phone numbers were disconnected, and no international flight records placed him on any commercial aircraft. Either he had help, or he had planned his exit long before the police ever knew his name. In the middle of this chaos, another twist shocked the team. An IP address linked to Liora's personal iCloud account attempted to log in from a location in Moldova. The attempt failed due to two-factor authentication, but it was enough to trigger a flag. Days later, a dark web forum known for trafficking and exploitation posted a blurry image of a woman seated on a couch in a dimly lit room. Her face was partly obscured, but she had the same tattoo on her wrist as Liora. The image had no caption. It disappeared after 6 hours, but not before being archived by investigators monitoring the site. Authorities couldn't confirm if the woman in the image was alive or staged. No metadata existed in the photo. It was either real proof of life or a cruel attempt at disinformation. Yet for Liora's family, it was enough to rekindle hope. If she was alive, she might still be waiting somewhere. Trapped and hidden from the world that once adored her, Detective Faisal began connecting names of individuals tied to both Omar and Nils. He discovered they had attended the same private cryptocurrency conference in Munich 3 years earlier. Surveillance from that event showed them in the same room, two men from opposite corners of Liora's life crossing paths. long before she had any idea of what was coming. Whether they were business associates, rivals, or something more sinister remained unanswered. But the deeper Faisal dug, the clearer it became. This wasn't a random crime. It was a network, and Liora had unknowingly walked straight into its core. A full year had passed since Liora Hemsley vanished in Dubai. The headlines that once flooded social media had faded into background noise, overtaken by new scandals and trending topics. But for Liora's family, the silence had become unbearable. With no body, no confirmed sightings, and no arrests, they were left in a permanent state of limbo, grieving someone they could not bury. Her mother refused to declare her legally dead. Her sister continued to update Liora's pages with hopeful messages. And Detective Faisal Khedri, though no longer officially assigned to the case, had refused to give up the hunt. The investigation had reached a frustrating standstill. All known villas associated with Omar Zarani had been cleared out. His digital footprint was reduced to nothing but dead ends. Nils Varga had disappeared entirely, his last known whereabouts traced to a flight from Qatar to Istanbul under a different identity. Neither man had been formally charged. Both were wanted for questioning, but without solid evidence tying them directly to Liora's disappearance. International cooperation stalled. Then, unexpectedly, a low-level data analyst from a European security agency flagged an unusual file. During a sweep of hidden files found on a seized server in Romania, part of a separate cybercrime operation, one folder stood out. It was encrypted, but inside, investigators found video fragments. One of the clips showed a woman with blonde hair, bound to a chair in a dim room. The footage was grainy and time-stamped 6 months after Liora's disappearance. Though her face was bruised and partially obscured, facial recognition software found a 92% match with Liora. The room had no windows, just a rusted metal door and flickering overhead lights. Her voice was never heard. The footage had no audio. The fragment ended with the woman looking up at the camera and closing her eyes. It was the first concrete proof that Liora may have been alive months after the world had assumed the worst. Interpol issued renewed alerts. Pressure mounted on governments to reopen the case with urgency. The footage was traced to a server rented through a company based in Moldova, using an IP masking network designed to prevent tracking. But the encryption had a familiar pattern. It matched data coding used by a former digital asset company that had once listed Nils Varga as a shareholder. The company had dissolved 2 years ago, but its servers remained online in small Eastern European towns under new names. As agencies coordinated across borders, Faisal returned to a theory he'd long suspected, that Liora had been sold into a trafficking ring disguised under the facade of influencer marketing. Wealthy men, posing as recruiters, lured models with offers of cash, lifestyle, and exclusivity, only to entrap them in untraceable networks where identities were erased. Liora wasn't the only one. She was just the one the world noticed. Soon after the video surfaced, a new encrypted email arrived in Faisal's inbox. It contained one sentence: "You found her, but you'll never reach her." The email was routed through at least 9 servers across different continents. But embedded within it was GPS metadata, an accidental leak, or a deliberate breadcrumb. The coordinates pointed to a remote warehouse in western Ukraine. A raid was swiftly organized by local authorities with Interpol support. When they stormed the building, they found evidence of recent occupancy: discarded wigs, fake passports, and clothing consistent with those worn by models in various missing persons cases. But again, no people. No Liora. In a back room, however, investigators found something chilling: a wall covered with Polaroid photographs of different women. Each one had a number written underneath. Some were crossed out in red, others had no mark. One photo, dusty and pinned in the corner, showed a woman in a black bikini standing near a yacht's railing. It was the same image Liora had posted. Before vanishing, only this time her eyes were visible. And she looked afraid. The meaning was clear. Liora's disappearance was not a single tragedy. It was a chapter in a far larger operation that stretched across countries and identities. Her fate remained unknown, but her case had blown open the doors on a system long hidden in plain sight. For those watching closely, one truth was unavoidable. She had been hunted, captured, and possibly still existed somewhere in the shadows, caught between being found and being forgotten.